Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Discover New Music podcast from us at Pelt Music. Shortly, we'll be joined by Anger Party after we featured them on our Discover New Music playlist over on Spotify with two of their singles, Had Enough and Eat You Alive. But before then, the usual reminders from myself. If you would, please do follow Pelt on social media. We are on Facebook at Pelt and on Twitter and Instagram at Pelt Music. And finally, if you would, please do hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, wherever you're watching or listening. Welcome, Ash and Owen from Anger Party to the Discover New Music podcast. How are you this fine day?
Good.
Wonderful, mate. Thank you. How are you?
Well, absolutely delighted to have you on. Obviously,
thank you.
the band have put out two singles thus far, and we've enjoyed them both. So I'm in the unique position where we've actually put two of your singles on our playlist. So we've got two singles to talk about. But before we get to the singles, we always start the podcast in the same way. It's for listeners that aren't familiar with you, just to get a bit of a background to, who Anger Party are. So we call it our origin story. So think superheroes. How did you guys get to wearing the Anger Party cape, as it were?
Well, I was in a band. Anyone that has followed us and that does sort of recognise me will know that I was in a band called Kill the Ideal previously. We'd been going for about 10 years. We had achieved some pretty decent things. Hosted our own show in Kerrang. We played in Europe. Obviously toured the lengths of the UK. We'd had kind of through the years, sort of like I was did a lot of the writing. So obviously I was always there. But through as it went, the band was going for such a long time, different members and things like that. But towards the end of the band's life, we were recording with Ben Sampson in Watford. Ben Sampson, for anyone who doesn't know, was a guitarist in a band called Lower Than Atlantis. Quite a small band, not joking. Massive band. To which I had the privilege of meeting one of the nicest and most talented people I've ever met in my life, and thankfully I asked him if he wanted to come and join Kill the Ideal, and that was Owen, who's obviously on here with us,
and he's going to pay you later for that compliment as well.
Yeah, absolutely. The tenor off to him later.
He is the most talented person I think I've ever met ever. So I'm in a good place at the minute where I can literally do no work whatsoever. So I'm really not telling myself here, but not only is he a wonderful producer, songwriter, guitarist, he's got the voice of an angel. So why I'm actually in the band, I don't know. But but anyway, we were going for quite some time, and it just, a lot of bands will probably know sort of like what I'm going to say next is that you kind of like sell your soul and you flog your guts for such a long time, and you kind of hit a point where you sort of think, well, how much further are we going to go from here? And we kind of made the decision that we're going as far as we think we can within that band's kind of sphere of sound and ability. And our bassist had just, bless his heart, had a kiddie. And obviously wanted to focus on being a dad, which was, the most wonderful thing, for us to see. And that was Luke. And obviously without him, he had been with me from the start. And it's the same thing. Obviously the band wouldn't be the same without Owen. And it wouldn't have been the same without Luke and our drummer at the time, Jordan. Without any of them, it wouldn't have been the same. And with Luke gone, and with where we were at the point at that time, we sort of just felt that without Luke, it's not the same. So it would kind of feel there was something missing. So we kind of, as me and Owen sat down and as a sort of like a collective, we just made the decision that, shall we look at trying something new, going down a new path? and with our manager, who we've got now. I don't know if I'm allowed to say who he is, so I won't, just for the risk of getting beaten up.
Like I said, that made it sound like he's some shady back alley.
Yeah.
That's because he is.
Yeah.
No, he's amazing. So no, I'll say, because it's a bit of promotion of him. So we're with King's Agency, who has, he's Tom, who runs it. It's worked with some, amazing artists. Obviously, he's got the most amazing artists, which is us. But I'm kidding. But anyway, through talking to advice and different things, we decided to go a different route. To which that's where we're at now. And we, over the course of a 2-year period, we just wrote and wrote and wrote. We must have written about 150 songs between me and Owen, and then we just basically cut those down to a fine few, and then set them out into the world, and that was Anger Party.
Yeah, definitely. And sometimes, I mean, the music industry, as you all know, is incredibly tough to navigate, and sometimes a bit of a pause and a reset can do wonders. And certainly the output that we've had so far, I say I've really enjoyed it enough to, we've got 2 of the singles on the playlist, which we normally just tend to stick the one from any band on there. So it's obviously a bit of a compliment to what you're doing already. We look at, obviously, your output now, and I was actually going to start with Had Enough, but I'm going to switch it around, and we're going to talk about Eat You Alive first, because obviously you have had this big change up, and obviously fresh start for the band. So the question for me would be, what about Eat You Alive made you pick that song to be your introduction to the world as Anger Party?
I mean, Owen, from a producer perspective, would probably be the best person to answer that. But me and Owen, we do everything together. We wash, we eat, but no, we're very much. I like to think that through our time in Kill the Ideal, we're very much in sync and in tune with what we've done, and we wanted something to be completely different to what we'd done before, and we're both massive fans of like Rammstein and 9 Inch Nails and bands of that era. Obviously Rammstein are still going on, but when you think about them, obviously in the 90s, and I was just tinkling with this riff, and it just kind of came up. But there's elements of like Led Zeppelin in there, with the sort of like the semitone run up in there, from D to E. Well, it's not in that because it's in drop C, so whatever that is, I don't know, I'm useless. However, I'd sent it across, and Owen was just like, right, we can turn this into the most disgusting, heaviest sounding thing ever. So, and that's kind of what we did. But the rest of it, obviously, is down to, because Owen, being the clever bugger that he is, he produces everything. I do, obviously, I write, but it's as if he's not here. I'm talking about him, isn't it? But with his production skills, he is on another level. And it's thanks to him that obviously it's sounding like. But at the time when I came up with the idea, I just got into watching Fear the Walking Dead. I'd snapped my Achilles tendon playing football, so I literally was just sat around doing nothing. So I was watching that, and then the idea just sprung into my head, and it came from there. But the whole idea of the song is obviously about eating people, but it's not just about that. It's basically, obviously, kind of, Owen again will be able to explain it better, but in the world that we live in now, obviously we're all everyone at the minute, everyone's so fearful of so many things, and it's just, we wanted to kind of just come out with a bang and just be like, right, what's the most disgusting thing we can put out? And that tended to be it. But Owen will be able to explain it to you in a better way than I can. So
yeah, it was just, there was I think, for what it's worth as well, it was the first song that we wrote together as like in the knowledge that it was going to be for a new, different band. And because it was the first one and it was kind of the archetype for everything that was to come after it, it felt right that was the first single as well. And impact wise, yeah, I think like Ash said, it's I think at the minute there's a general kind of thirst in the market, not just in the rock market, but I think in the mainstream world of what rock music can permeate that right now. People do want a little bit of a shock. They do want something a little bit heavy. They do want something a little bit gory and creepy and all the rest of it. So I think it was probably a little bit right place, right time. And I never thought for 1 minute when we wrote that a year later or whatever, it'd be debuted on Radio 1, which is nuts and still nuts for me anyway to get my head around that and fathom it. But yeah, I think it's just, I think we're very lucky that it's kind of on trend at the minute and it's what people want to hear. And yeah, I think for us, it was kind of liberating in terms of the writing, because there was, if you listen to the lyrics, really, it's a bit silly. It is about eating people. It's quite fun, but at the same time, it's ridiculously heavy as well. So yeah, I think it was just a nice combo of things to draw people in, really, I think.
Oh yes, definitely, and the combo as well with the video. The video fits the song so well as well. So where did the concept for that video come from?
I think as soon as we'd so again, me and Ash, like two peas in a pod, are both massive fans of, I mean, horror in general, but we have very similar tastes in TV and film anyway. But I think in terms of films, a lot of the kind of the more slasher style horrors and the more kind of gory stuff, we both take an interest in that. And the whole plot for the video, as soon as we started talking about, eating people and cutting people up and all that gory stuff, the first thing that came to my mind was the program Dexter. So as soon as we had that kind of concept, I was like, okay, well, it's got to be a kill room. It's got to be, cellophane sheets, dingy lighting, fake blood, and the works. And yeah, it was a pretty disgusting day shooting that, to be fair, because the extra that we had planned to be the person who was going to get sacrificed, so to speak, was ill. So I ended up doing that part and letting the guys kind of cut me up and pour blood all over me and stuff. And then, bless him.
I said you did keep saying harder.
Yeah. And then the three of us are all vegetarian / vegan. Jordan's vegan. But there's a shot right at the end where Ash is biting down on someone's heart, and that's a legit steak. So I think the poor guy nearly threw up when he did that.
Bless you.
Yeah, it was. That was an experience. There was quite a lot of gagging going on after that. But
luckily, we work with a videographer who's probably equally as like sort of warped as we are, and he doesn't shy away from when we're like, okay, we're gonna do this horrible thing, and he kind of plays right into it. He's great.
Yeah, he's certainly got the mind for it, isn't he? He gets it.
Definitely. Yeah, it definitely does, because it's come out really well. Great bit of at work, and obviously fits the song really well. So listeners, we'll have the link for the video in the bio, and I obviously encourage you to head over and check that one out. As well, another thing to check out then is obviously your second single that you put out, Had Enough. And again, really enjoyed it. Listeners, you can check it out on the playlist, of course, and obviously on all the usual streaming platforms. So what's the story behind Had Enough? How did that song come together, and what's it all about?
That is one of my if I can call it, my career, that probably is one of my favorite songs ever that I've ever had a part of being involved in, basically. And I remember it to the day because Owen had basically written the music to it, all of it, and just sent it across, and it just sounded, AAA production ready. Like you could just put anything on top of it and it would just sound incredible. So when I listened to it, just literally had this like explosion happening in my ears, and it was just amazing. And when I did the sort of put the sort of lyrical ideas down on the melody, it was in the depths of lockdown, and I'm still, none of us are millionaires yet, so I'm still having to work. I'm quite open about it, and I'm a nurse as well, so I work in A&E. And within that time, it was quite a scary time because it was early on, and obviously none of us really knew what was going on. And at the time, I was getting really, really fed up because I was, we were all confined to our houses. We were, I was going to work, putting myself into a position where, as far as we were concerned and as far as we knew, that obviously if I was to catch, COVID or anything, I could die because we did lose quite a few of my colleagues at the time. So the song isn't about that, but it's about emotions that are around that at the time, the fear and being confined to our own space, and basically just being, what now people obviously are saying, just like puppets in a giant play, and everyone was going around trying the hardest to be okay about it because we had no choice. And the amount of mental health that kind of was sparked through that, the amount of marriages that broke up, the amount of people that, went through losing their houses, was having to rely on the food banks and the stresses that was put on them from that. It was just all about the struggle of what people were going through. So obviously the first line, my makeup is fading, is because it's just literally, I've got this front on, and every day there's cracks forming every single day because I'm struggling to hide how I'm feeling. Because we were all struggling to hide how we were feeling. And, the inner anguish and pain that, was growing inside of everyone because we were only allowed out the house for an hour, and all that social side that we need as human beings for our own mental, health and well-being was just stripped from us. We had no control whatsoever. And it was just like the first kind of taste of what Big Brother would be like. You're just watching the TV screen saying, this is what's going to happen. You've got no say in what's going to happen. But then you're seeing, obviously, different people in Parliament having parties, copping off with different people, basically. And it's about sticking up for the people that felt helpless and frustrated and upset and, angry about, and, essentially bring back Guy Fawkes and burn it down, because that's literally how I felt at the time. And when I say this is 100% true, and I do think it's some of my best lyrical content that I've ever done. That all was just one take, the first take, lyrics, everything. It's just what came out of my mouth. And it stuck. I don't know if we changed anything, did we, Owen? But I think more or less it kind of just stuck out how it was.
Yeah. And then we stacked a million vocal layers in the chorus.
Yeah, I remember. There's about 100 different harmonies in there, something ridiculous. But for me, it's a track that, again, not only with Eat You Alive, we got Radio 1, Kerrang, we charted again with in their official chart. We got Track of the Week with Alex Baker.
And of course, we got added to your wonderful playlist as well, Paul.
yeah,
of course. And your playlist, mate. Sorry, but it just goes to show this that the amount of messages I've had from people hearing that song that have come through to say they feel like they can connect with it in a certain way. for me is massive because it feels like such a long time ago now, doesn't it? Like
Yeah.
it feels like it kind of more or less never happened because there's wars going on, and different things, and it's like, oh, we've got to be scared about something else now. And it just feels like a million, a million years ago, and it was only a blink of an eye,
It was,
that all this happened. So yeah, that's basically, what it's about. Owen, again, picking him up. Owen puts things in such an elegant way, uses big words. I'm dyslexic and I can only spell, basic things. I'm not very good at, explaining things as well as him. But yeah, that's what it is about. It's just about the suffering and the mental strain and I suppose the insanity that was being put upon us at the time, and to have no control over anything. And it just always, it just has me, every time I hear it, it takes me straight back to how I felt at the time.
Yeah.
So sorry, it's a bit of a long-winded explanation, but
no, that's fantastic.
That's sort of like that's kind of what it was, what it's about basically.
Yeah, I love to hear these stories. I really, really do. And obviously, as you say, highly relatable. We've all been through so much and we've all certainly had enough. You talk about all the issues going on right now, and we could go down a massive political rabbit hole. And I'm sure I could sit and talk to you all day about that. But I mean, for me, obviously kudos to yourself, obviously, for the work that you're doing within the NHS, and obviously
Thank
all
you,
of us at Full Pelt Music are fully behind you with the ongoing issues that you have in securing fair and equitable reward for the work that you do. And the song again, I say, listeners, if you haven't listened to it, make sure you go and check it out. And perhaps if you have listened to it, have another listen to it now, haven't heard the story behind it, and certainly it is very, very powerful for me in the shit show that we're living through at the minute. We need music to help us along, I think. So it's absolutely fantastic. And you kind of touched a little bit on the reaction. That was going to be my next question. To everything that you've put out so far, of course, it's always going to be scary, changing to a new project or starting a new project. Again, the industry is very, very tough to navigate. And of course, reactions instantaneous these days because we have social media. It's not like the old days where you'd have to wait for a newspaper review or to see how many people turn up to your show and all that kind of stuff. Obviously, you can see straight away what people are thinking. So, given you've just put out, put your heart and soul into this new music and you put it out there, how have you found the reaction to it?
I think nuts, in a word. Yeah. It's crazy because I think touching on what you said there, we obviously had a level of apprehension when we left behind a previous project where we felt like we were doing reasonably well. We'd got a couple of accolades under our belt. We were obviously tremendously proud. I mean, Ash more so than me was at it for a lot longer. I kind of joined in the latter phases, but you get this attachment because it's your thing and you feel very proud of it and you feel very proud of the accolades. And I think we were all very apprehensive about letting that go and putting it to bed because there was always that apprehension of what if this doesn't do well or doesn't go the way we want it to or isn't received the way we want it to. And then once we kind of got the tracks done over the period of a year, maybe nearly 2 years really in the background throughout lockdown, when it came time to actually let this stuff out into the world and put this stuff out. And I remember when our publicist, Jay, basically just said to us, this first single's getting premiered, debuted, not even just featured, but debuted. The first time anyone's going to hear it in the world is on Radio 1. Blew my mind because none of us have ever done that in any previous projects. None of us have come anywhere near close to that. And then, from there, you then get, I know Ash listed them off earlier, but, a sort of featured artist of the week on Kerrang, single number 2, then does Radio 1. It's utterly crazy that in the breadth of 2 singles, we've kind of achieved stuff that I know when either of us were kind of starting out in bands, it all felt like untouchable, like it was stuff you could never ever get to. and somehow in the space of these 2 singles, we've kind of done those things, which is, yeah, it's utterly mental. And then you know, aside from, you know, the kind of press or radio accolades or whatever, the general reception from people hearing it, the comments, the shares, whatever it is just, I mean, in any scenario for any band, it's always heartwarming, and I think anyone's always humbled and kind of grateful for any sort of reception. But you know, we've just had a lot of really genuinely kind people saying very kind, very humbling things about the work that we've put into it and about the records that we've made. And you know, long may it continue, because it's a wonderful feeling, basically.
Yeah.
It is an amazing feeling, because it's like you know, you like Owen was saying, it's something that we were trying to do for 10 years with, you know, Kill the Ideal, and we did some, like I said, we achieved some great things, but it's those things that we were striving to do. And then you know, after, it felt like it was taking a million years to get this stuff together. And you know, like what he said when our PR agent got on a call with us, and we had like a joint Skype call, and I just burst into tears. I was absolutely bawling. Owen was like, "Are you all right, Ash?" And I was like, "No, I'm crying," because it was just literally, you know, like you have to kind of pinch yourself, because you just sort of like thinking, you know, I suppose it's that. I don't know what the word is. The penultimate, you know, realization that the gamble and all the hard work and everything that you've poured into this piece, as sort of like, you know, it's not that it's paying off, but it's just people get it. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah, it really does, yeah. To have that connection, yeah, and again, see the audience relate to the songs. Yeah, we talked about Had Enough and everything. You know, it's so rewarding, you know, for you guys. I'm absolutely sure of it. And obviously, you know, it's the fruits of your labours, that hard work that you talked about. So you obviously mentioned, you know, over the last couple of years, you've worked on upwards of, you know, 150 odd, you know, concepts of songs potentially. So that kind of ties in with the next question, which is always quite nice. So obviously, you know, you've had a really impressive start. You know, where are the band going to be heading next? You know, are you aiming to get something more substantial out there? I know you probably can't say much at the minute, because obviously there's always that machine in the background that has to go. But are you working towards, you know, an album, an EP? You know, what do you see coming from the band in the sort of next year or so?
I think I think the short answer to that is, I think the bits that we can probably say are there'll be new music over the coming months. Obviously, anyone who's paid any sort of attention or has any sort of perception of the pace at which we're releasing things can probably, yeah, expect something relatively soon. So yeah, there'll be new music probably over the next couple of months or so. And then I think being entirely honest at this point, I think our focus after that is then on, you know, building the live side of what we do. We've kind of seen a good reception to our records, and a good reception through, like I said, all those outlets that we've just been talking about. But I think the next challenge for us is, or the next like target, we want to know going into the summer that we can, you know, have feet on the ground, put bums in seats, like actually get people out and show them that, like, a different dynamic of us as well. Like obviously the live show for any artist or band is usually a different world to the recording, to the studio side of things. So I think for us it's just a case of we're really keen to just demonstrate that side of things now and show people what they can expect in that environment. So yeah, I think the short and honest answer is, yeah, there's a bit of new music coming, and I think the focus for us will be on the live show going into the summer.
Yeah, I think the big thing for me as well is, when in our previous band, we had built up quite a nice reputation for being a good live band to see, basically. The kind of feedback we got was, you know, people that have come to see us have basically said, I've heard from X, Y, and Z that you're amazing live or whatever. And then they basically say, yeah, you know, they were right. Obviously, I'm not saying we're the best band in the world, but I am saying that. But the worrying thing is that obviously you leave, people have that kind of, anyone that obviously remembers us from that, you know, they remember you from kind of like, I say, a certain standard that you've left. And obviously it's not like it's a competition with other bands, but just in terms of, you know, well, I saw them when they were this, and then you kind of have that you kind of think, well, essentially that's the baseline mark. So it can't, you know, it has to be better than that. And that's, you know, got no doubts that it's going to be, you know, it's bigger and better, because that's, you know, that's basically our sort of ethos now, is that we're trying to do everything that we can to be, you know, bigger and better. As much as proud as I was of my previous works, but so that's the thing for me, is that, you know, we are going to be, you know, putting in so much effort and, you know, attention to detail and everything we can. Obviously, we don't have the budget off, you know, a band like Biffy Clyro or anything like that, but obviously there's certain things we can do, you know, to try and, you know, for people to see, you know, that the effort that we're going into, because obviously our main focus is, you know, is the listener, because we want them to kind of see what we're trying to put across, you know. So our whole focus is around them. So obviously it is on the quality of the song, but also, you know, we want them to basically experience what we're feeling. So so that's like Owen said, that's a massive part of it for us. So I'm really excited for that next step. Yeah.
Yeah, really fantastic ethos to have, really, and that it's always nice as well when you guys on the other end of the call do my job for me, because my next question was going to be, you know, what are the plans for coming out live? So, you know, you guys are smashing it. And the next bit that I like to do once we've had the live discussion is just to tell everyone where they can obviously follow you on social media, because that is such an important thing these days. And you've again smashed it, because you make my life easier, because you've got the same handle for all of the different social medias. So I haven't got to sit here and reel off 4 different ones with underscores and God knows what else in them, which is always fantastic. So really easy. If you want to follow the band on social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok as well, I believe, it's all simply Anger Party, which I'd like to think the listeners might have been able to find you anyway, without me saying that, given how easy that is. But yeah, obviously that's where they're going to go to keep track, obviously, the new songs that are coming out. And the live shows as and when they get announced. So yeah, definitely encourage the listeners to get across there. And of course, I'm sure there'll be the links in the bio of the episode as well. So the last portion of the podcast is what we call set list science. And of course, it's unique, this episode, really, because of course, Anger Party, you've not really got out there and played yet. But of course, you have previous experience in other acts. So hopefully you can partake and give me some of your insights into this. So I'm a bit of a set list geek, you know, and again, the ethos you were just talking about and putting in the effort, you know, as a person that goes to a ridiculous amount of gigs every year, I can see the bands that put in the effort, that make the effort, and especially when it comes to the structure of a set list. So the question here is, how much importance do you place into the structure of your set lists, and have you got any rules that you tend to follow?
I think on an effort level, I will say we put a reasonable amount of thought in. I think structure wise, we've always been more so the kind of, I think, start super strong and start, you know, high energy, maybe 2-3 songs, mellow it out a little bit into the middle, so you've got a little bit of breathing room for the audience, a little bit of interaction, a little bit of chat, and then finish big. That's always been our ethos. But Ash, anything to add to that in terms of the specifics? I think that's what we've always gone for, though.
Well, no, that's basically it. And I always basically, that's essentially what Queen did. Who is the best band to ever set set foot on the earth, in my opinion, anyway, and the best frontman and the best vocalist and just the best human being ever. But God rest his soul. But yeah, I watched a documentary with them because I'm obsessed with them. And any fans of Queen will probably not that I rip Freddie off, but that's basically who I learned. I've never had any vocal lessons, and I'd like to kind of think that I am a relatively good vocalist. But I've had a very good vocal teacher, which was Freddie. So, and that's how I learned to sing. And yeah, through watching, them for years, I remember seeing kind of a documentary or some footage of them, and it was Roger Daltrey, not Roger Daltrey. I've gone bloody brain dead
Roger
now.
Taylor.
Roger Taylor, sorry. I've gone, sorry, Roger. Yeah, Roger Taylor. Basically saying the same thing, and that's kind of like if that's what they do, then that's good enough for us. You start off strong, absolutely, wallop them in the face. Give them a tiny bit of a breather and then get back on it.
Yeah.
The other thing for us as well is we love a good intro. There's got to be, and again, I don't mind saying this shamelessly. We obviously with our music, there's a lot of synthesizers, there's a lot of cool soundscapey stuff and sound design that's happening, as well as the traditional kind of rock band elements. And for us, like using that stuff to build the tension before we even get to stage is, and it pumps up us up as well. Like it's nice for us to kind of hear that stuff happening, hear the crowd kind of getting ready, and then boom, we're on. We love an intro for sure.
Yeah, and so do I. So do I actually. I think and it's the little nuances like that I notice and pick up on. You can tell when bands have carefully sort of curated even up to the music that's playing before they come out. The music that's playing when they're setting up. You can tell. I can at least when effort's been put in, and I obviously appreciate that. So and no one better really than Queen to try and copy from when it comes to anything, but especially live shows for sure. So certainly look forward to being able to see Anger Party at a show down the road. Definitely encourage listeners to pop along as well when they can, and obviously check out the 2 singles either on our playlist or anywhere else that you can stream music. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you both. I always like to finish off with chucking the ball to you guys and just saying, what would be your final message for the listeners today?
Don't let the bastards get you down. That's the. So I don't know if I can swear.
Oh, you can swear.
Yeah. No, just honestly, we can't. The people that have been listening to us so far and have followed us, and anyone that's obviously come along from the previous band, we really do appreciate our listeners, from the depths of our hearts, and obviously thank you so much for coming along and listening to us, and for from what we've put out so far, it's only going to get bigger and better. Like I said, we're on all major streaming platforms, and don't be afraid to reach out to us. Send us a message. Anything you want to know, anything. If there's anything, we'll reply to anyone and everyone. Because like I say, that we really do value anybody that listens to us, comes to the live shows, and gives us their time, because ultimately it is about them. I hate bands that are kind of like it's all about us, because it's not.
Yeah.
It's not. I'm sorry, but it's not. So again, thank you so much for giving us your time and hopping on this wonderful journey we're about to embark on. And obviously, I know Owen will have some things to say, but we'll see you all at the first show, whenever that may be. So, thank you.
Well said. I've nothing to add. That was poetic. Poetically beautiful, mate. I've nothing to add.
Thanks, mate. Wait until I can roll on my own then.
There's nothing else, mate. All I will say is, even though Adam Lambert is firmly in Freddie's driving seat these days, if Queen are listening, then we are available for bookings.
Yes.
But aside from that, I think just thank you to you, Paul, and everyone at Full Pelt for having us on today and also backing us on the last 2 tracks as well, mate.
Yeah, thank you very much, Paul.
Yeah, no, absolute pleasure. As I say, I think all that's left really now is Owen, for you to pay Ash that money for all them compliments that have been coming.
I mean, of course, yeah. I mean, it's I'll get it sorted. I mean, it's normally the other way around. Every time we do something like this, I'm normally like, "Oh, he's the greatest singer to ever live." Today I went easy on that.
Oh, no, absolutely fantastic, obviously, and yeah, thank you for joining.
Yeah,
thank you very much for having us.
Well, thank you everyone for listening. I really do hope you enjoyed that chat there with Anger Party. Make sure you follow the band over on social media, and of course check out their songs Had Enough and Eat You Alive on our Discover New Music playlist on Spotify. While you're at it, also, if you would, please do follow Full Pelt on social media. We're on Facebook at Full Pelt and on Twitter and Instagram at Full Pelt Music. And finally, if you would, please do hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, because we'll be back very soon with another episode of the Discover New Music podcast.